everyone, welcome back to my vlogging channel. So today I'm going to do a video that I have never done here, and I'm going to do a story time video. I guess that's what they're called. And this is kind of something that a lot of people ask me about because I've tweeted about it that I'm not religious at all, or that I don't believe in God, and that I'm actually an atheist. And so this is something that I think a lot of people are curious about, especially a lot of my American followers. This experience that I had when I was a young kid, basically, really actually shaped me significantly into a non-believer. Atheism just means that you do not believe in a theistic explanation of the world. That doesn't mean just one religion. It just means any kind of belief that's based on a theistic belief is just, I don't believe in that. I don't believe, the world can be explained through any religion. I was not raised in a religious household, so my parents were not religious. They were kind of nonconformist, actually. Like when we moved to Canada, and I was in 7th grade, 13 years old, 13 years old, something like that. I went to summer camp with a friend of mine, and it actually was a Christian summer camp in America. So it was in Washington. This is the time before internet. So there was no website that you could quickly look up, or like Instagram stream to follow. We were recommended this camp by another friend in our class, and she had gone to this summer camp like the year previous, and she's like, oh my God, it's so amazing and it's so much fun. My best friend back then in school, we're like, oh, let's go, we want to go too. We asked our parents, and they thought it was a great idea to send us, for any parents, how amazing it would be to send your kids off to summer camp. Our parents, of course, allowed us to go, but I'm not even really sure how aware they were that it was a Christian summer camp. I wasn't really aware of what that even meant because, like I said, the days before, internet, we had a pamphlet. Back then pamphlets were a thing. So we had a pamphlet with black and white images. It wasn't even color printed. It was just a little pamphlet. It just looked really fun. They had a ton of fun activities. It was situated in Washington on this beautiful lake surrounded by beautiful forests, and they just had so many cool water sport activities, water skiing and banana boat riding, and they had horseback riding. They had so many cool fun activities. My friend and I, we went to this camp. She is also not from a religious background, so we were both on the same level. Both our parents were not religious at all. I remember they sent you this packing list, and in the packing list it said that you have to bring a Bible. I remember we went to a bookstore and went out and bought a paperback Bible because we didn't even own one at home. And I was kind of confused. I didn't really know why we had to bring a Bible. This is how ignorant I was back then. It was in 7th grade, and I was just excited to go to camp with my best friend. And the camp is absolutely amazing. It was an overnight camp. So we obviously, because we lived in Vancouver, so it was in Washington. So one of our parents drove us down. We got settled in. It was these cute little wooden cabins, surrounded by forest. It was 9 kids and 1 counselor per cabin. So you actually slept in the same cabin with your counselor. It was bunk beds. It was really cute, actually. The cabins were absolutely adorable. There was a communal shower area. And then there was a big hut where they had all the food and stuff. So you'd get meals 3 times a day. And then you would sign up for activities to do throughout the day. So there was tons of really cool activities to do. So it was a really awesome summer camp from the sort of fun aspect of it. We had a great time. We met a lot of really nice kids. It was very inclusive. It wasn't a cliquey camp. But in this camp was definitely the first time that I experienced the sort of indoctrination of young children by the Christian sort of leaders of the camp. So all the camp counselors and all the CITs, they call them counselors in training, and of course all the staff members were from a religious background. And that was actually one of the they didn't have any camp counselors that didn't believe this Jesus stuff, because it was a Christian camp, obviously. So they wanted to make sure that everybody believed on the same thing. It was kind of a mixture from the kids of non-believers and believers. So there was definitely, I think probably the majority of people did come from a Christian background. We quickly learned, who knows about Bible stuff and who doesn't, because we would have Bible study every single day. I was from the non-religious background. My friend was from the non-religious background, and there'd be a few people in our cabin who were also sort of non-religious, but then there'd be the other kids who were already, from Christian families, and so they already believed in all this stuff. So we had Bible study every single day. It was before dinner. So it wasn't just like once a week, it was every single day Bible study. And for me, I had no idea. I mean, I knew sort of the, story of Jesus and stuff, yes, but, I didn't know anything about the Bible. I couldn't even figure out, this is always the thing is when I started opening this book, I was like, well, where's the index in the front that tells you what page what is? And it definitely wasn't like that. It was just like book of Mark, book of this, book of that, Genesis. And I was so confused. It was honestly probably the first time I really read the Bible. So after dinner, they had this thing they called it back then Fireside. So the first time we went, I was so excited. I thought they were going to make this big bonfire and we were going to sit around the fire roasting marshmallows. This was honestly what I thought it was going to be, because that's what my family did, is when we went camping, we would make a fire and roast marshmallows. And so they called it Fireside. So I was like, yay, marshmallow and hot chocolate time. But basically it was more preaching. So you would be sitting there. It was kind of this amphitheater outside, and there'd be a stage in the front. And sometimes they would have music there, but mostly it was just a man. It was always a man. It was never a woman. A man in the front preaching. And so it would be almost an hour something. It was so long. And it would just be a man preaching about Jesus and the Bible. And it was just really long. There was no fire. There was no hot chocolate. There was nothing like that. It was just super boring. Yeah, so it was every day you had a Bible study for I think the Bible study was half an hour, 40 minutes or something. And then at the before going to bed, you had this Fireside, which was more preaching. It was pretty full on, and even during the day when you would be doing the activities, which was the fun part, I don't know, we had archery, and you could go boat riding, and all these cool fun activities. The counselors always kind of made a point to bring it back to religion, and it was you were having fun, but there was always the underlying message of preaching the word of God and bringing God into these activities somehow. I was still so young. 12 years old, that's still fairly impressionable. You don't really have a strong sense of self, I think, at that age. I definitely was indoctrinated. I was really indoctrinated by this surrounding of these camp counselors and the staff and all this preaching every single day. And they would play music at the camp that was Christian music, So you're kind of listening to the music, but you're sort of not really aware what you're listening to. But yeah, it was very heavy, full on. The camp counselors, I guess they were instructed to kind of hone in on those kids who were not religious. So it became very clear who, like I said, who was religious and who came from already a Christian background and who didn't. They honed in on those kids specifically because their job was to try to convert those kids to Christianity. Very kind of, I don't know, secretive or underlying. They were really trying to preach to you that God is the answer and Jesus and all this stuff. And, you have to think about it from a young child, you're surrounded by this, you're super impressionable. Plus you also have this kind of peer pressure. The people around you often are coming from this Christian background, and they're oh yeah, I'm Christian and stuff like that. And so as a kid, I kind of felt I wanted to belong. Every kid wants to belong. I did feel pressured to commit myself to this faith and be yes, I'm a Christian. So it was actually 2 weeks. So the camp was really fun, but the last 2 weeks or the last few days was the pressure was on to convert those kids that were not Christian. The counselor had a one-on-one session with each child in their dormitory, in their cabin. So there was 9 kids. So they had a session with all the kids. They didn't say this. They're not oh, we're going to have a one-on-one session now. It was the camp counselor, she came up to me and she's hey, Julia, why don't we go for a canoe ride? And I was oh, that's so fun. Spending time with my counselor, I kind of felt special. So we went on this canoe ride, and then I found out actually she did that to every kid in the cabin. So this was they had to do this. And at first we were just talking about whatever, just fun stuff about school, but then the questions became pointed, and she's oh, well, so how come your family doesn't believe in God? And she was trying to get a sense of my home environment and just asking me really specific questions why I don't believe in God. And she's oh, if you believe in God, you'll be part of this greater community, and maybe even your family will want to get involved, and you could take this Bible back home and you could read it together with your parents. So it was really pushing it onto this child, me, really kind of that missionary force of trying to get this young, impressionable child to convert to a faith, especially from a family that wasn't from that faith. And so honestly, I will tell you, on that like last few days, I suddenly started to believe all this stuff. And I was like, yes, like this is real, like Jesus is real. And like, you just have to kind of imagine that you're being brainwashed for like 2 weeks. In a sort of really super fun environment. So it wasn't like the whole day was like brainwashed, but you know, we would do these really fun activities, but the kind of topic always circled back to religion and Christianity and Jesus and God. So by the end of those 2 weeks, I was like, yes, I want to be a Christian. I'm converting, and I had no idea what that even meant, but I was just like, yes, I want to be part of this. I want to be like the same as everyone else here. She said, oh, well, to convert, you have to say the sinner's prayer. I didn't even know what that is. I still don't even really know what it is. So she and I went outside to this quiet area and we said the sinner's prayer. And then I came back in the cabin and I was like, hey guys, I'm a Christian now. And everybody was like cheering and giving me hugs. And it felt great. It felt great in that moment to like be part of something. So then like camp ended and I was a Christian now. So remember, I'm a 12-year-old kid. I don't even really know what that means. My friend, by the way, she had that same pressure applied to her. She had also converted and she was a Christian now too. So we're picked up by our parents who were like, probably had like no idea that this was happening at this camp. So my friend and I were like, yeah, we're going to totally stick to this and we're going to go to church together. Because like I said, our families both weren't religious. So none of us were going to church and stuff before. Well, that really fizzled out really fast. So as soon as I was back in my normal environment with my family, I felt a little bit embarrassed, actually. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm believing in Jesus now. And my mom was, you know, she wasn't like ridiculing me or anything. You know, she just kind of was like, yeah, you know, I don't really believe in that. But she definitely wasn't trying to force me to go back to how I was. I guess I just kind of realized that this wasn't really who I was. This had kind of been forced upon me, and anyway, just kind of fizzled out. Then I just never really thought about it again. Like, we definitely never went to church again, and I guess I kind of just stopped believing in God. So it was kind of a very quick passing phase of like 2 weeks of intense, like kind of brainwashing, indoctrination. You know, my parents weren't going to like convert to Christianity just because their 12-year-old kid comes home thinking God is everything. This next summer comes and we had actually a great time. Like I said, this was a great camp. There was so many fun activities. The people there were really nice. We wanted to go again. So I was a year older. This was grade 8 now. So I must have been like 13, 14, something like that. Went again for 2 weeks with the same friend who went the year before. But this time it was just different. I think that 1 year of growth, of personal growth, I think between the ages of like 12, 13, 14, you change a lot, developed a sense of self and a little bit more awareness of what was going on around me. And this time I actually became super hyper aware of the indoctrination that was taking place. Whereas when I went the year previous, when I was like 12 years old or something, I didn't really even know what was happening. I just was kind of going along with everything. And now that I was a year older, I really just became aware of it. I started to get really annoyed with it. I mean, it's our own fault. We went to a freaking Christian camp. What did we expect? But like I said, this was before internet. We just had fun at this camp. We didn't really know any other summer camps to go to. It was just different back then. The same thing is happening. The indoctrination, the Bible study, the Fireside with the long talks by these men, always men, never women. There was never a woman like preaching in the front. It was always men. I just got so sick of it. And I was like dreading going to this stupid Fireside every night because it was always so long and so boring. We'd be sitting on these uncomfortable like benches and it was just like cold. And I just sometimes was like tired. I wanted to go to bed. I didn't want to listen to this freaking preaching stuff anymore. This was like in the 90s. There was definitely no openly gay students at my school back then. This was like before the whole opening up of all these kind of like LGBTQ issues and stuff. It was like people were like starting to talk about homosexuality at a younger age. Like in school, we started to like talk about that. And I remember in one of these like Bible lecture sessions, actually the topic of homosexuality came up. It was kind of like a split in our cabin of like those non-religious kids and like the ones from the religious backgrounds. We had totally different opinions about homosexuality. We, as in the non-religious crew, we were like really against discriminating against homosexuals. Now that I think about it, actually the two other girls who were very vocal about this issue were also Canadian, and the other kids in the cabin were all American. So I don't know if maybe that has something to do with, maybe because maybe in the Canadian school system it's different, or I don't know, but I'm just thinking maybe that was it. I remember this exact phrasing of our camp counselor. So we were talking about homosexuality, and she said, homosexuality is like a drop of milk. So if God has 2 glasses of water in front of him, one is like this, you know, a pure, perfect glass of water, free of sin. This is what she said, free of sin, like this. And then he has another glass of water, and it has a drop of milk in it. And so she was referring to the drop of milk was the homosexuality. She's like, well, if this has a drop of milk in it and this water is like cloudy and it's now no longer pure, well, which glass of water do you think God is going to prefer to drink? I remember even at that age, I mean, I was like 13, I guess, 13 or 14. And I remember thinking back then, wow, that's like such a bitchy thing to say. And I remember thinking like, wow, God sure is damn picky about his glass of water. You know what, like there's a drop of milk in it, he's not going to drink it. What a damn picky God. I was just like really turned off by that. We were talking amongst ourselves after the Bible study class, and we were kind of talking about discrimination, and we were like the sort of pro-homosexual side, or like, you know, we were saying that, you know, it's so unfair how homosexual people get discriminated against. Like if you're interviewing someone for a job, and you have to hire somebody, you know, you shouldn't discriminate against that person because he's gay or he or she is gay. And I remember the Christian camp was like, well, you know, if in that case, we would definitely take the person who is not gay because it goes against our religion, and like it's not, you know, it's not good to be gay, basically. And the Bible says it's wrong. Anyway, so all these things like just started kind of clicking in my head. I just realized that this faith was not for me. Not only because of these weird beliefs that I guess at that point I was like a year older, and these things just did not make sense to me. These old ancient stories. A lot of the stories did not make sense to me. They didn't seem logical to me. And then the whole aspect of discriminating against people who did not fit into the laws of that faith, even at that young age, just really turned me off. I just became so aware of the amount of pressure that had been put on me and my friends to convert to Christianity. It had the opposite effect. After that second time at camp, I was like done. I never wanted to go back to that camp. And even though it had been, again, fun, lots of fun activities, meeting lots of like nice people, it just totally led me in the opposite direction. Immersed in this Christian culture, Christian faith, are surrounded by so many Christian people, but that extreme pressure and that extreme indoctrination that had been put upon us, I became aware of it, and it just turned me off. Much later, when I was older, you know, when I started to really think about, you know, science and nature and all that stuff, and of course, all those things started to not make sense at all anymore, all the things that religion teaches. But I just remember at such a young age being basically at this Jesus camp. I'm going to call it Jesus camp because that's what I think it was, kind of, that actually having the opposite effect in the long run and turning that person completely against Christianity. It was just strange to see, because I was definitely not the only kid who was in that position. You know, there was lots of kids, like I said, who were not from families of faith, and at the end were like converting to Christianity. It's just wrong. It's just wrong to pressure a child who's under your care to believing this faith. And it wasn't just like, let's learn about God. It was like, it was just so wrong. It was just so wrong. And, you know, you might say, well, you know, why did your parents send you to this camp? And I don't honestly, I don't really know if my parents realized that this was such a Christian camp. I don't think they would have maybe sent me there if they had really known. Like I said, this was the age before internet. So before making this video, I actually looked up this camp to see if it still exists, and it still does. And I'm not going to share the name of this camp because I just don't want to promote it. Anyway, so I looked them up. They have a website now, and they have a mission statement. So the doctrinal statement and mission statement. So doctrinal comes from indoctrination. They want to indoctrinate you. It's obvious. There's a lot of statements. I'm not going to read them all. We believe that the Bible is the word of God, divinely inspired, infallible, entirely trustworthy, and the supreme authority in all matters of faith and conduct. So there's really no like gray area. It's like the Bible or bust. It says, we believe in the institution of marriage defined in scripture as the covenantal union between one man and one woman. We believe that the Christian standard is faithfulness within that marriage covenant and abstinence outside of it. No room for anything in between. You know, nothing about gay marriage is definitely not accepted. Like, gays are not welcome there, I guess. We believe that every person is created in the image of God, that human sexuality reflects that image in terms of intimate love. We believe that God created humankind as two distinct sexes, male and female. There's nothing in between. There's no transgender people do not exist. It's poignant that they would point these things out because these are definitely the sort of hot button topics, not really in Canada, but I think these are kind of the hot button topics in the United States. Like I said, this camp was in Washington. It's kind of very telling that they write this on. These are very kind of political statements and they're putting it on this website for kids. We serve the local church and community by drawing groups and individuals to a camp and retreat where they will experience the biblical message of Jesus through instruction, creative activities, and significant relationships resulting in changed lives. So that ending really kind of brought home the point of this to me, was that the whole reason for this camp is to change people's lives in the fact that they want to convert people to Christianity, especially to those children who do not come from religious backgrounds, resulting in changed lives. We want to change your life. We want to change how you think. We want to change your outlook on life. That's really what this camp was all about. Like I said, this mission statement is, this did not exist back then. We did not know about this. I don't think my parents or the parents of my friends were really aware of this. I don't know if this camp has maybe gotten even more conservative. These are very conservative statements. Can you imagine if a kid went to that camp who was maybe homosexual and was just like experiencing these feelings, taught these things that were like make that person or that child feel wrong about themselves or make them feel bad about themselves because it's, this just goes against Christ. This goes against the Bible. Some might say, well, it's your own fault for going to a Christian camp. Obviously, yes, we should probably not have gone there, but I'm honestly thankful for that experience. It shaped my outlook on religion because I became aware of how much pressure is applied on kids or applied on people who don't believe that faith to convert to that faith. And this is not only Christianity. There's a lot of faiths who make it a mission to convert people to that belief. And it's like, it's our belief for the highway. It's like, we are right, you are wrong, so you must believe what I believe. Going to Jesus camp turned me into an atheist down the road. I just think that's kind of poetic justice. This planet would be so boring if everybody believed the same things and just felt the same way. So I know some people will get offended. I don't really think there's a reason to be offended. These are just things that I experienced. I'm just sharing with you guys. I don't judge people on what they believe. I have friends who believe in God. I would actually like to know your opinion if you've ever experienced something similar, or if you have a totally different opinion, you can write that in the comments. Please be respectful. I mean, I know this is kind of a hot topic for some people, so just try and remember to be respectful of other people's opinions and stances and stuff. So I would really appreciate if you just kept your comments PG. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any more questions, let me know, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.